Su family raid day. Dad threw me to the soldiers in fancy robes. This is Su Yueying, eldest daughter. Later, Dad was the new emperor's top general. Su Yueying? Empress. I. A whore in a brothel, any man's. Mom. Sick. Begged Dad to free me. The gate guards beat her to death. I begged Su Yueying to bury Mom. She said, brothels are full of virtuous women. Stay pure. I might have helped. But you chose this, no help. That night, they cut me up. Dumped me in the river. Woke up, back to the raid. This time, I'll make her keep her virtue. In that brothel. Welcome to my channel. If you like this story, please click to subscribe. There are more wonderful stories waiting for you to listen to. Chapter 1. My body still throbbed with intense pain. My limbs had been severed, and a bucket of cold water was poured over my head, forcing me to wake up. I could only watch helplessly as I was turned into a human pig. I struggled violently in agony. Su Mu, my childhood sweetheart, held a long knife and looked at me with disgust. He wiped the blood off the knife with a white silk cloth. It's so dirty. I couldn't believe that this was the person I had loved for more than 10 years. Su Mu and I had been betrothed since childhood, and during the 10 years I spent in the brothel, I used the money I earned to take care of his widowed mother. But I never imagined that when we met again after so many years, the only words I would hear were, "It's so dirty. You bear the name of a beautiful woman and do such despicable things. You deserve to die." I hated him with all my heart. I had never received a single benefit from the Su family during their prosperous days. Yet I had suffered the hardships of the Su family's decline on behalf of Su Yueying. Degrading? I couldn't help but laugh coldly. The Su family had committed a great crime. As the daughter of a traitor, Su Yueying was treated worse than a dog in the brothel. When they asked me to take the blame for Su Yueying, why didn't they call me degrading then? The icy river water slowly covered my mouth and nose. I thought of my mother again. On that day, she knelt at the gate of the general's mansion, crying out in agony. She just wanted to live. She didn't harm anyone. What crime did she commit? I felt someone pulling me up. She is Su Yueying, the eldest daughter of the Su family. Those words echoed in my ears once more. Over the past 10 years in the brothel, I had thought countless times about what would have happened if I had denied being Su Yueying back then. I struggled to open my eyes. 2 soldiers lifted me up, and the heavy shackles were about to be placed on my head. This scene felt familiar, as if I had returned to the day our family was raided. I immediately spoke, saying the words I had thought about for 10 years, "I am not Su Yueying." In my previous life, my father had told me he would come to save me, that he was only taking a few days in prison for Su Yueying, and that the Su family would arrange things so I wouldn't suffer. I believed him then, but I waited for 10 years. I looked at the 2 soldiers. "I am not Su Yueying. You have arrested the wrong person. How will you explain this to the emperor?" The 2 soldiers hesitated. My father stood beside me with a cold expression, shouting, "Shut your mouth." I immediately pointed at him. "Look. Even a servant can scold me. How could I be the eldest daughter of the Su family?" The officers released me with suspicion. I stood up and saw the corner of a moon-white skirt behind the crowd. I curled my lips and tore off the skirt my father had draped over me, revealing the coarse cloth of a Su family servant. I am a flower room made of the Su family. I extended my hand, though slender and fair. It was different from the delicate hands of a pampered daughter. There were scars on my hands from being pricked by flower thorns a few days ago. The eldest daughter of the Su family has injured her hands. How could they not even give her medicine? The 2 soldiers immediately closed the door, locking everyone inside. "We are here on orders to arrest the entire Su family. If anyone tries to impersonate someone else, they will lose their heads." After speaking, their eyes swept over my father repeatedly. My father's face turned ashen, and his menacing gaze nearly pierced me through. In my previous life, when I was taken away, I witnessed my father using the chaos to protect Suyuing as she left the crowd. I waited endlessly in prison, only to receive the order to be sent to the brothel. I stepped into the crowd and stood behind Suyuing, though she had changed into a servant's clothes. A glimpse of her moon-white skirt peeked out. I wondered whose clothes my father had snatched in the chaos. Suyuing's delicate, beautiful face was smeared with gray powder, her hair disheveled. Standing among the servants, she was truly inconspicuous. I quietly reached out and twisted her waist hard. Ah! Suyuing jumped up. Her voice was as sweet as a nightingale's song, and the two soldiers were immediately drawn to her, each grabbing one of her arms. I saw my father standing not far away, his veins bulging on his hands, his eyes filled with pain. "I'm not Suyuing," she said, her voice trembling with tears, looking at the soldiers pitifully. But the soldier showed no mercy, tearing open Suyuing's sleeve to reveal her moon-white dress underneath. "You, a servant girl, dare to wear such fine clothes? Even the moon shadow silk reserved for the palace is on your body." The soldier sneered. "Take her away." When I was led to the main courtyard, I just heard the lady of the house's sobs. "Inger is just a girl. How can she be taken to prison?" Those taken away were the old patriarch of the Su family and the male members of the first branch of the Su family. Suyuing, who had always dressed as a man and followed her older brothers, was the only female relative taken away. The second and third branches of the Su family were gathered here, silent, with only the lady's sobs echoing faintly. As soon as I entered the door, a porcelain cup flew past my ear. "You worthless girl," the lady said, holding on to her maid with one hand and pointing at me with the other. "Dying for your master is your honor. Yet you dare to betray your master? Someone, the eldest madam shouted loudly. "Beat her to death with a stick. Beat her to death." My father stood at the door, glaring at me with a vicious expression. "You are disloyal and unfilial. You are unworthy of being human." I ignored the two of them and knelt down. "This servant just heard those two soldiers say that His Majesty already knows about the imperial examination fraud case and its connection to the eldest master." "What?" The second master lost his composure and stood up from his chair. The third master kept rubbing his prayer beads, his expression unreadable. "What are we to do now?" Years ago, the Su family split into two branches. Now the emperor has only confiscated the assets of the main branch of the Su family. But once the exam cheating case is settled, the entire Su family will be doomed. In the previous life, the eldest master was imprisoned for only 3 days before he exposed all the corruption, including exam cheating, selling official positions, and forcing innocent people into prostitution. The emperor was furious, and all male members of the Su family over the age of 7 were executed, while the women were sent to brothels. Even those who had already married were not spared, though most of them ended their lives by hanging themselves with a white silk scarf. That's why I, bearing the name of Suyuing, ended up in such a pitiful state. I sneered. The eldest madam wiped away her tears. "This girl must be beaten to death today. What if all the servants are like her?" "What are you thinking?" The second master glared angrily. "The entire Su family has been placed under house arrest. And you're still thinking about beating the servants to death? Are you afraid there won't be enough charges against us?" "But..." The first lady tried to say something, but the housekeeper rushed in. "It's bad. Those people are coming again, and they seem to be targeting the second and third masters. It's over." The second master sat back in his chair, his eyes vacant. The Su family is finished this time. Having experienced the previous life, I knew that the soldiers would return. The emperor had never intended to spare them from the start. However, I waited for the right opportunity. If only there were someone in the household who could take charge. I said humbly. Once the two of them were taken away, only the women would remain in the household, and even finding someone in the capital to submit a petition on our behalf would be impossible. How could I not know that? Second Master flung his sleeves aside. But Second Master suddenly stopped, his gaze darting toward me. Third brother is a Buddhist and rarely appears in the capital, few know him. The Second Master said in a very low voice. We can find someone to take his place, and have him stay at home to arrange for someone to plead on our behalf. At least this way, there is still hope. That's treason, the old matriarch exclaimed in shock. Mother! The Second Master clenched his teeth. Whether we do this or not, our family is already doomed. Having the third brother find someone is merely begging the emperor to spare the life of a family member. Otherwise, even the young children in the household may not be spared. I knelt on the ground, glancing briefly at my father before lowering my head again. The Second Master was indeed drawn by my glance and followed my gaze. He clapped his hands. Right. Guan Qing, your build is similar to the third brother's. And you don't often go out to do things. Why don't you take his place? I lowered my head, almost laughing out loud. My father's face turned grim. The eldest madam exclaimed. No. The Second Master's voice betrayed his impatience. What's wrong with that? The eldest madam couldn't speak. But I knew. In my previous life, after my father became a general, my mother came to beg him to redeem me, but he had her beaten and driven away by his new wife. That day, my mother died from her injuries. I later found out that this new wife had a red mole at the corner of her eyebrow. I looked up at the eldest madam. Her anxiety was evident, and at the corner of her eyebrow, a red mole burned my eyes. When the nest is destroyed, how can the egg survive? Given the Su family's situation, both the eldest madam and Su Yueying managed to escape. If it weren't for Su Yueying being too flashy and attending several poetry gatherings related to the corruption case, she might have met the same fate as the eldest madam. I suspect that the Su family's misfortune is likely connected to my father. He wanted to take the eldest madam and Su Yueying away. So why would he step into this deadly trap? My father hurriedly knelt down. I am unskilled. If I impersonate the third master, I would be exposed in a matter of breaths. The eldest madam didn't even have time to wipe the tears from her face as she hurriedly said. Guan Qing isn't a house servant. How can this work? I'll go find a house servant we know well. Upon hearing this, I suddenly looked up. Madam, my father is the most loyal and righteous man. When you had a nightmare and needed human blood to calm it, he immediately gave you a large bowl of his own blood. When he heard that the eldest miss was in trouble, he panicked and accidentally kicked over grandfather's tablet. How can you question his loyalty and righteousness just because he isn't a houseborn servant? The First Lady's face was filled with anger. Guan Qing, that's your father. Precisely because he is my father, I will not tolerate anyone slandering him. I spoke with righteous indignation. Earlier, I did not understand my father's intention to protect the eldest miss, which led to his loyalty not being recognized. This time, I will do whatever it takes to ensure my father fulfills his duty. I turned to my father and knelt down again. Father, go now. Don't worry about me and mother. The respect, humility, and loyalty you taught your daughter, I will keep in my heart forever. Good. The Second Master clapped his hands. Guan Qing, I never realized there was such a loyal person by my eldest brother's side. The sound of soldiers echoed from the front yard. Quickly, the Second Master whispered, do as I say. He then patted my father on the shoulder. It's only a few days in prison for your third brother. The Su family will take care of it. They won't let you suffer any injustice inside. Hearing these words, which were identical to what my father had said to me in my previous life when he asked me to take the blame for Su Yueying, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. When I returned home, my mother was sitting at the table wiping away tears. Seeing me come back, she widened her eyes. Ah Cheng? Mother, it's me. I hugged her, pressing my face against her chest. It's my fault. I shouldn't have let your father take you away. Tears streamed down the wrinkles on her face as she held me tightly. Just come back. Just come back. I've always known that my father despised my mother. I thought it was because my mother was quiet and my father was too busy. I once wondered why my father, who was a man of some standing by the master's side, treated my mother so badly. She was just a laundry woman, and as a house-born child, I should have been assigned to the inner courtyard. But since I was 7, I've been working in the flower house. When I was young, I couldn't move the flowers, and I was punished for it. The housekeeper had suggested moving me to lighter duties more than once. But my father said, there's no need to show favoritism toward her. The flower house was arduous work, and no children had ever been allowed inside before. Why was I, a 7-year-old child, the one who ended up there? When my father made me take the blame for his crime in my previous life, that was the first time he had ever smiled at me and my mother. I thought that if I obeyed him, he would treat my mother better. But when my mother was beaten to death by the eldest lady's maidservant, he only held the eldest lady's hand and said, "Don't let it upset you. It's not worth it." The woman who bore him children, cooked for him, and cared for him for half her life was reduced to a single phrase, "It's not worth it." My mother and I were nothing but a joke. His so-called integrity and loyalty were merely a cover for the eldest lady's cruelty toward us. I clung tightly to my mother. I won't leave again. The next day, Sumu came to find me. Sumu and I had been childhood sweethearts. After growing up, we naturally became engaged. I had taken care of his widowed mother for 10 years. Yet he had hacked me into a human pig. What is it? I looked at him with a blank expression, but the veins on my hand were bulging. I wanted to kill him. Ah, Cheng. Sumu came to hug me, but I dodged him. What is it? I repeated impatiently. Ah, Cheng. I need your help. You know that the eldest miss has done me a favor. I can work in the front courtyard thanks to her recommendation. So? I raised an eyebrow. So I want you to help the young miss. She's suffering in prison, and her health is poor. I want you to take her place for a while. Just enough time for her to eat and change clothes. The young miss has done you a favor. You should be the one to repay her. What does it have to do with me? I crossed my arms and laughed coldly. Ah, Cheng. When did you become like this? Sumu grew anxious. We are already engaged. We are one. Besides. Besides what? I leaned closer to him and whispered with a smile. Besides. I look so much like her. You secretly swapped us. Leaving me in prison, was that an easy thing to do? I lifted my hand to flick my thick bangs, which almost covered my eyes. I had tried several times to tie them back, but both my father and Sumu had refused. Later, I found out they were afraid people would notice how much my face resembled Suyuang's. Sumu's eyes widened, his lips trembling. After a long pause, he managed to speak. You know. Know what? I smiled even more. Do you know that you and my father wanted to switch places? Or do you know about Suyuang? I dragged out the words. That she's an illegitimate daughter? You. Sumu's expression shifted from shock to cruelty. In that case, I can't keep you alive. Guan Cheng, remember to keep this secret in your heart next life, and you might live a few more days. As he spoke, the blade in his hand swung toward me. I quickly pulled out a cloth bag and threw it at him. The bag contained quicklime. Knowing his true intentions, how could I have been unprepared? Before Sumu's knife could touch me, he screamed, clutched his eyes, and collapsed to the ground. Perhaps because he was nervous. Sumu had arranged to meet me in a secluded courtyard in the southwest corner of the mansion. I looked around and saw no one else. I picked up Su Mu's knife and gently stroked his cheek. Su Mu, remember to keep your thoughts hidden in the next life. That way, you might live a few more days. I raised the knife and hacked viciously at Su Mu's limbs. With his agonized screams, flesh and bone separated. I threw the knife into the pool of blood. Su Mu twisted his body in agony. No, you're not. Guan Cheng. I knelt down and leaned close to his ear. I am. I came to settle the blood debt. Su Mu, you should be grateful. According to what you owe me, I should have gouged out your eyes and nose as well. I rested my chin on my hand. Su Mu, this is the place you chose. Stay here and rest in peace. I stood up but heard movement on the wall. Looking up, I saw a woman peering over the wall. Since all the adult men of the Su family had been arrested, only women, children, and the elderly remained in the mansion. As a result, the soldiers surrounding the Su residence had withdrawn the previous night. I rushed out, intending to stop her from saying something she shouldn't. But as soon as I stepped out, I saw a 12-wheeled phoenix-feathered carriage parked in front of me. I paused for a moment, then knelt down. Greetings, Princess. Go back. I heard everything. He wanted to use you to repay a debt. I only followed him because I saw him with a long knife. It's good that you have the sense to protect yourself. Her tone was slightly comforting. The princess turned to leave, but I crawled forward on my knees and called out to her. Princess, may I say a few words? Meeting Princess Wei Young was truly an unexpected turn of events. Had this not happened, I would likely have gone to Xiangshan Temple in 3 days. In my previous life, I learned from a prison guard that the emperor had visited a Taoist temple and encountered assassins. The emperor was furious, and as a result, the interrogation of the Su family was postponed. Whether it was my father, Su Mu, or Su Yueying, they were now nothing more than servants and a noble lady. Not worth fearing. What truly worried me was the new emperor who would one day invade the capital. My father has been having an affair with the eldest madam for years. Su Yueying is already grown up and about to be betrothed. Why would he suddenly decide to take them away? How will he settle them? Is he certain that he can provide them with a better life than the Su family after taking them away? Moreover, the Su family has served as officials for 4 generations and has been deeply rooted in the capital for nearly a century. How could they fall so quickly? There must be someone behind my father. In my previous life, I had heard that my father had followed the new emperor from a young age and was highly trusted by him. Now, my father and Su Yueying are merely imprisoned. I have never seen the new emperor and do not know where he is, nor whether he can reach into the prison. Going to Xiangshan Temple to find the emperor is extremely risky, but I have no other choice. I'm just a flower room maid. Even if the emperor were to kill me, it would be my fate. However, the appearance of Princess Wei Young does offer a glimmer of hope. Get in the carriage and we'll talk. Princess Wei Young beckoned to me. I silently got into the carriage. Rumors say that Princess Wei Young is wild and promiscuous. And from the looks of it, as soon as I got on the carriage, 2 handsome men looked at me. Don't be afraid. They're just concubines. Princess Wei Young patted my shoulder. Want me to get you one? It seemed that was indeed the case. Princess Wei Young was different from the rumors. She appeared innocent and naive. I told Princess Wei Young about the matter in the capital, where someone's hands had already reached deep into the city, causing chaos. But her reaction was unexpected. She peeled an orange and stuffed it into my hand. Do you know? The wheels of history keep turning. As individuals caught up in it, we can't change much. It's best to go with the flow. I've tried my best, but history will eventually repeat itself. Might as well enjoy it while we can. I knelt down. Even if I hesitated, unsure how to reveal the events of my previous life. Even if what? Princess Wei Young smiled sweetly at me. Even if the dynasty collapses? Even if I'm hacked to death by soldiers? I was startled. My forehead pressed against the ground. Cold sweat breaking out on my back. In my previous life, the new emperor had invaded the capital. The emperor had hanged himself, and this emperor's younger sister had been hacked to death by soldiers who had stormed into the palace. Was Princess Wei Yang also reincarnated? If so, shouldn't she want to change everything more than me? Why was she just going with the flow? Princess Wei Yang pulled me up, leaned close to my ear, and whispered quickly, "Prosperity, democracy, civilization, harmony, freedom." I didn't respond, so she quickly asked, "How much does the shirt cost?" I remained silent, feeling somewhat dazed. Princess Wei Yang seemed annoyed. She paced back and forth for a moment, then crossed her legs and sat down at the table, resting her chin on her hands. "Guan Cheng, I remember you said you were a maid in the flower room, right? I don't know what you've been through, but remember not to speak recklessly. I'm a princess, and I have ways to make life difficult for a lowly maid like you." She said this with a menacing tone. Then she seemed slightly relieved. "At least you encountered a kind-hearted college student. If it had been a master of Machiavellian tactics, your life would have been forfeit. Finally, I'll give you some advice." Princess Wei Yang's expression turned serious. "Leave the capital within 10 years. Don't go north either, head to Jiangnan." I bit my lip tightly. The new emperor was from a foreign tribe. He had marched south from the northern 16 cities, conquering the capital along the way. Every city he passed through was razed to the ground, with no survivors left. After capturing the capital, he forcibly abducted women from the city, regardless of whether they were married or had children. Anyone he saw was taken and given to his soldiers. If there weren't enough women, one woman was forced to serve multiple men, fathers, sons, and brothers. 4 days. The screams and cries of the capital echoed day and night. Some families with strict rules simply ended their daughters' lives with a white silk sash to preserve their honor. In my previous life, I was a courtesan and managed to escape that fate. But in this life, I have not entered the brothel. How can I avoid this disaster? Should I really take my mother and move away? But my mother has her own family to consider. In my previous life, because my maternal uncle's family had nowhere to hide, my pregnant cousin, my married cousin, and my 14-year-old younger cousin all perished. But if I were to move with the entire family, I sighed. Who would willingly leave their ancestral home? Moreover, there are so many women in the capital. Am I supposed to watch the tragedy of my previous life repeat itself? To be ravaged by a foreign tribe? To have our civilization destroyed and our homeland trampled underfoot? I exhaled deeply, kneeling on the ground with my forehead pressed against the cold stone. "Princess, no need to say more." The princess waved her hand. "Guan Cheng, I ask you, if in the future there is a general who can defeat 30,000 men with just 800, whom should our dynasty send to fight?" A strange bittersweet expression flashed across the princess's face. She murmured to herself, "Don't I want to change this humiliating history? A history so heartbreaking that even glancing at it in a history book breaks one's heart. A history that countless novels have tried to save, but now that I'm here, what can I do?" "That's the Divine Marshal General." I froze. "The Divine Marshal General? Isn't that my father?" I cautiously replied. "Is it Guan Qing? He's in prison now." Princess Wei Yang looked stunned. I thought she would ask how I knew the Divine Marshal General was Guan Qing, but instead she asked, "What about Empress Su? The empress who gave the childless emperor 4 sons? She's in prison too. What about General Su Mu of Guangwei, the one who captured 4 cities and took the capital?" When she got to this point, her eyes widened in shock. "The one you just beheaded was named Su Mu, right?" I felt a pang of guilt and nodded slightly. "He's probably about to die." Goodness! Princess Wei Young recoiled several steps in horror and plopped back into her chair. You've wiped out the entire imperial family and the harem. I became Princess Wei Yang's maid. She always looked at me meaningfully, muttering things I couldn't understand. Guan Cheng, you know, according to our traditions, we should be fighting each other right now. 10 years ago, I would have beaten you up. But now the tide has turned, and everyone loves to watch you beat me up. I remained silent. But she didn't let me off the hook, and we should be competing for the same man. Clatter. The porcelain vase in my hand fell to the ground. Princess Wei Young rushed over, her face filled with concern. Oh no. The antique. Be careful with these in the future. Princess Wei Young waved her hand toward the palace. They should all be placed in my tomb. I want to create jobs for the motherland, letting them dig for 3 or 5 decades. To prevent the princess from saying anything else shocking, I hurriedly said, Princess, what about the 2 men in prison? Don't worry. They're all locked up in single cells. I've already mentioned the matters you brought up to my brother, the emperor, in a roundabout way. If it still doesn't work, there's nothing we can do. We've done our best. As she spoke, Princess Wei Young blew on the paper where the ink was still wet, which had some suggestions written on it. I glanced at it, and the first one was to return the troops to the military generals. I remained silent. The emperor and Princess Wei Yang's maternal family were the He family, the head of the civil officials. Although later generations have studied this dynasty extensively, this is the first time it has been put into practice. I guess I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Princess Wei Young muttered to herself. She was about to get up. But I held her back. Princess, have you forgotten? Your maternal grandfather is Prime Minister He. The emperor ascended the throne with his help back then. I know. Princess Wei Young smiled. My brother knows that too. He's had this in mind for a long time. Otherwise, why do you think my brother got so angry about the exam cheating scandal? He wanted to use commoners to challenge the aristocratic clans. But even the imperial examinations have been corrupted. To ensure the Wei dynasty's continuity, the aristocratic clans must be struck down. A few days later, Su Yueying entered the brothel, and no one would take her place to bear the blame. My father had been posing as the third master. But half a month later, he was led to the execution ground. The night before the execution, I went to see him. Princess Wei Young expressed understanding and gave me a token. I understand. It's a necessary step. Humiliate him. Trample him. My father had grown thin. His eyes yellowed. Upon seeing me, he let out a few hoarse laughs. Guan Cheng, your cleverness has betrayed you. Guan Cheng, you don't even know who you've helped. I know why you're here. He leaned toward the pile of straw nearby. You came to see if I regret it. How could I regret it? Guan Cheng, you were unlucky. I gave that woman a potion to prevent pregnancy. Yet she still got pregnant. I didn't want you to be born. So how could I ever treat you as my own child? Your best option is to take the blame for Inger. You'll never guess who that person is. Father smiled eerily. You'll be punished by him. I listened in silence. After he finished, I laughed. Father, I called softly. I don't care if you care about me or not. I just know you care about Su Yueying. I stood up. Su Yueying has become a courtesan. She'll go through all the horrors you once imagined for her. My father suddenly jumped up, grabbed the railing, and shook it crazily. Guan Cheng, what are you doing? Guan Cheng, Guan Cheng. When I returned to the palace, the princess was painting. I leaned in to take a look, but like her crooked writing, I couldn't bear to look at it. Princess Wei Young was very happy and held up the painting. Look. This is the royal totem of that dynasty. Foreign tribes worship it. As Princess Wei Young flipped the paper, I felt a sense of familiarity with the painting. I slapped my forehead. How could I? Just a flower maid who had seen nothing but the flower room and flowers. Recognize this foreign clan's totem? Late at night, it started pouring rain. Amidst the rumbling thunder, I shook Princess Wei Yang like crazy. The princess rubbed her eyes and scolded me. Guan Cheng, I'm really going to hit you. That totem. I took a deep breath. My mind much clearer. I've seen it on the third master's prayer beads. The third master of the Su family. On the day of the raid, I was taken to the main courtyard. That was the first time I saw the third master. Everyone was nervous. But the third master was twirling his prayer beads. His expression unreadable. On the beads was the very same totem that Princess Wei Yang had drawn. Princess Wei Yang sat up abruptly, put on her clothes, and said, "Wait here for me." Princess Wei Yang was gone for 3 days. When my brother sent men to investigate, that Lian Mo was still pretending to be the third master of the Su family. How could he be so confident? Because he disguised himself well. No one would have suspected he was from another ethnic group. I said, if it weren't for Princess Wei Yang's special knowledge of their totems, even if the capital had been captured, the third master wouldn't have been discovered. All the male members of the Su family have been executed. My brother interrogated the remaining Su family members overnight, but none of them knew anything. However, based on scattered clues, it seems that the concubine of the old patriarch of the Su family had her child swapped at birth. The real third master of the Su family died shortly after birth. And the one who has been living in the Su family all these years is actually this Lian Mo. The Su family members were unaware of this. It was revealed by Lian Mo. Not only that, Princess Wei Yang slapped the table. The guards found city defense maps and maps in his room. A bunch of traitors. No wonder they could advance south so smoothly. Lurking for decades and even obtaining the city defense maps. How could they not succeed? Princess Wei Yang was so angry she slammed the table several times. The heavy weight on my heart finally lifted with the sound of the table being struck. On the day summer began, I went to the brothel. It had been a long time since the Su family was raided, and my memories of the previous life were growing faint. But when I entered the brothel, I couldn't help but recall the events of my past life, being hung in the attic, forced to serve customers, and having my hair pulled as I was pushed into a chamber pot. As I entered, I saw Su Yueying. Her chest was half exposed, sitting on the lap of a middle-aged man. The red silk robe she wore had fallen to the ground, revealing her skin as smooth as jade, unable to hide the alluring sight beneath. She was just like me in the past, no matter how beautiful or talented she was. She was nothing more than a piece of rotten flesh. I had intended to approach her and shout, "Su Yueying, you're no better than this. Where is your so-called loyalty to your true self?" But standing in the brothel, I felt no sense of revenge. As I passed the back door, I saw several new girls hanging in the storeroom. Why? I should be happy. I asked Princess Wei Yang. Because using such things to kidnap and humiliate women makes her trash. But you're not. Princess Wei Yang stood up. Let's go. There's too much rotten flesh here. Let's go do some labor reform. Princess Wei Yang led me out of the capital and we arrived in Jiangnan. She renovated the looms, hired female workers, and established basic education. She did a lot. Always speaking with great modesty. Don't admire me too much. I'm just standing on the shoulders of giants. We went to the dense forests of the southwest and saw the deserts of the north. The events of my previous life were gradually fading away. I realized that the brothel that had once trapped me for a lifetime was nothing special. It had been nearly 20 years since I last saw Su Yueying. She was working in the textile factory, her hair wrapped in a headscarf, and she no longer resembled her younger self. A young girl who looked almost identical to her as a child grabbed her hand. "Mother. Look! It's the princess and her maid." She looked at me in shock. then bit her lip, lifted her chin, and acted just like the young Su Daxiaji, as if trying to preserve some dignity. The old woman behind her slapped her on the head. What are you doing? Without them, your little girl would be doing menial work too. Once a lowly servant, always a lowly servant. The princess had made great efforts to abolish the system and finally succeeded 5 years ago. The little girl Su Yueying was holding looked at us with sparkling eyes. I curved my lips into a smile, feeling a sense of satisfaction. Not only should she thank me, but her descendants, generation after generation, should thank me, thank the person she once despised and looked down upon the most. When Princess Wei Young asked me, this is what I said. After nearly 30 years across 2 lifetimes, I finally avenged Su Yueying. Princess Wei Young suddenly slapped the table. But there's one thing that bothers me. Everyone only knows about the princess and her female attendants. The common people are one thing, but we did so much and yet left no name behind. Take Su Yueying, for example. Everyone knows she was Empress Su. But what was her real name? What was her life like? No one knows. Princess Wei Yang grabbed my hand. More importantly, if we don't record this now, you won't even know how future TV dramas will portray you. I nodded, though I didn't fully understand. But her words made sense. Princess Wei Yang returned to the capital that night and kicked open the historian's door. Write down, I am Wei Lan. And she is Guanqing. Another summer arrived, and the princess's health had deteriorated. We returned to the capital early. She often leaned against the bed, struggling to speak, but her lips still murmured, Guanqing, don't be sad. I'll soon have air conditioning, a smartphone, and crayfish. Guanqing, I really want you to see my era. I really want to take you out for a drink. When the time comes, we'll find 2 geese. You hold one, and I'll hold the other. During the first heavy snowfall, the princess passed away. Since she had never married, the young emperor had her buried in the imperial mausoleum. I packed all her belongings from the princess's mansion and placed them inside. The young emperor was somewhat puzzled. I explained, to create more jobs. My mind was a bit fuzzy, but her words were still clear. The young emperor muttered, you're just like your aunt, you speak in riddles. As I passed by the Su family's former residence, it had been converted into a primary school. I walked around the area. In that southwest courtyard where Su Mu had died, I had met Princess Wei Yang. I looked up and saw 2 children writing on the wall, as if they were trying to climb over. The sunlight shone on them, just like the day we first met. Epilogue, Modern Times. Wei Lan. I felt someone tapping my shoulder. I opened my eyes to find my roommate Meng Qing looking at me in disbelief. Did you go to the library just to sleep? And your hands were so cold just now, I couldn't wake you up no matter how I tapped you. I stretched lazily and glanced at Meng Qing's notebook, filled with notes, and exclaimed in shock, we're only sophomores, do we really have to work this hard? If we wait until our 3rd year to prepare for the graduate entrance exam, it'll be too late. You guys are such overachievers, I said angrily. The movie The Wei Dynasty is premiering today. Want to go check it out? Meng Qing asked. What? I widened my eyes. Which terrible production company is making a movie about the Wei Dynasty? What's it about? Kidnapping women? Meng Qing looked at me with a strange expression. What are you talking about? A dynasty that lasted over 300 years, there's so much to film. But the most legendary period was during Emperor Wei Hui's reign. Even though the entire dynasty was on the brink of collapse, he managed to save it. That's right, I said proudly. Not only Emperor Wei Hui, but Princess Wei Yang also played a significant role, right? Exactly, Meng Qing said, resting her chin on her hand. According to the wild history, Princess Wei Yang was Emperor Wei Hui's true love. Because she refused to share a husband with anyone else, He adopted her as his sister. Otherwise, how could she have remained unmarried her entire life? She was a princess. Her marriage shouldn't have been difficult to arrange. Right? Where did you hear such wild history? I was deeply shocked. Meng Qing perked up. I heard that the Great Wei Dynasty was adapted from this wild history. The female official Guanqing who accompanied Princess Wei Yang was supposedly a man dressed as a woman. Princess Wei Yang loved her but couldn't have her. So she forcibly kept her by her side, eventually leading to a love triangle involving Emperor Hui, Princess Wei Yang, and Guanqing. Before Meng Qing could finish, I slammed my hand on the table, drawing everyone's attention. Meng Qing leaned on the table and whispered, "Hey, this is the library. What are you doing?" "What am I doing? I'm going to report him for defamation." On the way back to the dormitory, I kicked a small pebble. Well, the door to the historian's office is now kicked in for nothing. Who would have thought that people in later generations could be so shameless? My phone dinged, and I picked it up to check. The excavation of Princess Wei Yang's tomb is halfway complete, with over 7,000 artifacts unearthed. Looking at the familiar bed with its broken leg and the grapevine trellis I had made with my own hands, this must be Guanqing's work without a doubt. The young emperor wouldn't be so meticulous. A bitter taste welled up in my heart. I turned and headed to the milk tea shop. I hadn't had milk tea in over 20 years. While waiting for my drink, I heard someone behind me say, "Did you see that girl making the milk tea? I've never seen her before. Even with the mask. She looks pretty." I followed their gaze and saw a girl with bangs almost covering her eyes. A strange feeling arose in my heart. I walked up to her and tapped the counter in front of her. "Want to go drinking later?" She slowly lifted her eyes. "Why?" I smiled, "Because I'm a man of my word. Even after 1,000 years, I'll still remember." She slowly took off her mask. Just like the first time we met. The end.